He is 10 years old today, so it's his birthday. We're going to go get him a little treat later. And then another person asked, what kind of puppy are you considering for Toaster? Because we want to get Toaster a dog. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Nitty Natty. Welcome to episode 288 of the Love in Stitches podcast. Today I am coming to you from our campground in Banff, Alberta in Canada. I have my dog Toaster. He's like right under the table here that I have the camera propped up on. We have Kent outside, and I try to make it so that you can sort of see behind me because we are in a campground that just has a lot of really beautiful tall trees. Banff is incredible. It was someplace I was looking forward to coming for a long time, and we've had a wonderful several days here. We were in Lake Louise, and then we've been in like more central to the town of Banff. So it's been just spectacular. A little too crowded for me to find a good spot to podcast outside, so that's why I'm in the van today. But I still have some fun things to share with you. I've made some really good progress actually on my projects. I am bringing back in an old whip that I haven't shown for a while, and I have some fun questions to answer today, so let's get right to it. Starting first with my Seaside shirt. I think that's what I've probably put the most time on this week. So this is a tank top. It is by the Little Wolf Knits or Brianna Lupino. And the pattern itself is actually called the Seaside set because it comes with a tank top and a skirt. So I am making the tank top and I've made some modifications. So, oh darn, I'm in the middle of a row. Not very helpful. But here's what it's looking like so far. I'm using a really fun yarn that I got in Toronto hold on, let me show you, the Knitting Loft. Do I have the label? Oh, yes, I do. I got this at the Knitting Loft. It is their label. There we go, right side up. And it is their boot space, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and it is called Candy Shop. And I have 2 skeins of yarn that I have been doing helical knitting with this whole time. And that will come into play in a minute because I have something else to share about that. So it's a bottom-up tank top. So where I was last week, let's see. I put in one of my cute little paw markers. Isn't that so cute, from the Littlest Charm Co? So I had just started last week. I had done the ribbing. I just started on the body. And now I am well into this tank top. So I've done about, I want to say like 10 to 10.5 inches on the body. I don't really know for sure. It's actually looking a little shorter now. I was trying to measure it last night, like on my lab at a restaurant. Not the best place to measure. And I just decided, well, I'm ready to split. So I'm just splitting. It's actually supposed to be about 7 inches long. So I've added some length to it because I don't want mine to be quite as cropped as the one that comes, or as the designer did for the pattern. Because I'm not doing a high-waisted skirt. I want this to be something I can wear with more different like waistlines and things. So I did add some length to it. And then the only other thing that I've changed, I think, is that I'm just making it a little bit bigger. Like I have a little more positive ease. So instead of choosing a size that has negative ease, I chose a size that has positive ease. So we'll see how that comes out. Stay tuned. It may be a mistake. We'll have to see. I have just split for the front and back. So I haven't changed my needles or anything. Like I didn't put the back stitches on hold. I've just kind of left them there. And it's only just now starting to be a little bit annoying, like as the front gets taller. So I'm probably going to do that. And you know, at some point tonight, I'll put the back needles on a different, or back stitches on a different needle. Continue working on the front, but I've already made really good progress on the front. I put a marker in on that first row. Actually, I think I put it on the last row of the body, and then I'll be able to measure from there for the front. I like doing the front of this a lot. I forgot about this in the dress, but you don't have to go back and do any finishing on the armholes, which is really nice because you kind of continue that really nice rib that goes on the side. And it just kind of turns into a nice little edging. Isn't that cool? And you don't bind off any stitches either. So there's nothing to go back and pick up later. You're just done when you get to the top? Well, you have to do the collar. So you do have to do the collar, I think. Do you bind off and then do the collar? Yeah, you must. I don't know. I'll get there soon. One step at a time. So I really like that. I had forgotten that. I made the same pattern in the dress version, the Seaside dress, and it's been a few years. I think I made that 4 years ago. So it was cool. I was like, oh yeah, this is really nice. I like doing this a lot. So I was a little worried about the pooling with this color. It's a really bright and flashy color. I shared last week, you know, I didn't love how it was pooling in the rib, although now that it's more, you know, even in the body, it doesn't bother me quite as much, but I'm really glad that it didn't look like these big sections of color in the body. I think it's much more, it's still loud, but it's much more wearable like this, at least for me. That's just my preference. But then I started to get worried about when I split for the front and back, obviously that's going to change my stitch count. It's going to change things a bit, and I'm working back and forth. So that's going to change the way that the colors are placed. I don't know how to sit here because Toaster is like sitting right in the way. So when I first split for the front, it was looking really, really great and staying in a very similar, I mean, not exactly the same as this, but like, okay. Then I started decreasing, right, to work up the arms, and it started pooling in big chunks again. So you can see I have a big chunk of pink, a big chunk of yellow, and I don't really know if there's much I could do about that. I could have decided to alternate my yarns. So I didn't, and I'll get to that in a second. I could have decided to alternate my yarns. That may have helped, or it honestly may have made it worse. I don't know. It could have lined up exactly there too and made double the size of these splotches of pink and yellow. But I'm just going to keep going with it. I hope all in all, it will just be okay. And then I'm just remembering, like, maybe for my sanity, I need to just pick things that are a little more solid for garments. Even though this is beautiful yarn and a beautiful color, I don't know if it's exactly something I would put myself through again to say. So something did work out really nicely here. So I'm doing helical knitting, which means I've got my 2 balls of yarn attached, and I am, you know, doing the helical knitting method. And when I was ready to start the front and the back, my second yarn, or I guess where I was changing the yarns, ended up in the back half, which worked out really nicely. So what that allowed me to do, so here's my second yarn hanging out back here in the back. This part's the front. You can see it's a little bit taller. So what I did is, you know, this yarn got left here. I slipped my 3 stitches. I knitted to the beginning of the round. And then with that yarn, I started working the front. So I've just been working back and forth on the front. And this one is still hanging out here in the back. So what I will do when I'm ready to work the back stitches is I will take that yarn and I will just knit until I reach my beginning of round. Again, just working like the same rows I was doing when I was going round and round, and then I will start what I'm supposed to be doing for the back. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that means I'm going to be starting with a wrong side row, which is probably not how the pattern is written. So I might have to make an adjustment for that, but that's okay. I'd rather do that than have to reattach the yarn. I love being able to just continue without having to break my yarn or anything. So that was kind of a happy accident that worked out that way. So having lots of fun with this, especially now that I'm doing something new. It took me about a week, right, to get through the body part after I had done the ribbing, which took a few days. So it's moving right along very swiftly. I think we must be on an angle because I keep falling backwards. So I'm going to kind of sit sideways for a second, at least for this next project. Then I'll see if I can get myself configured in a way that makes sense. My hiking socks. I have also been putting some decent work into these. I have done, I think, just about everything so far while we have been hiking. So actively walking or hiking. All of these stitches have been made, which is kind of fun. So I am doing basically a Vanilla is the New Black sock by N.A. Fletcher, but I have added in an element of ribbing to it. So I've done this once before and I learned some things. So I'm making a couple of adjustments this time. So I've got another, I think this is another Littlest Charm Co. marker, and it's tiny, which is perfect for socks, but it's just a little leaf, a singular leaf, perfect for fall. And I have just started the heel increases. So in the vanilla is a new black pattern. The designer includes a version of what I think is called a strong heel. Essentially, you make increases from the middle out, and then you do a short heel turn, and then that's it. It's a really, really nice heel. Oh wait, you must decrease. I think the heel turn decreases things because there's not a gusset afterwards. Anyway, it's pretty magical. I really like this heel. It's a nice fit. It's very tall. It's good if you don't want to do a heel flap and gusset, but you still want to have the depth and fit of a heel flap and gusset and not lose that with a short row heel. I know a short row heel doesn't work for everybody, so I've really enjoyed them. This will be my, at least, I think my 4th sock with this stitch pattern. So because I did the rib for the top, I ended up doing 60 rounds of ribbing here on the top, and I'm also making the smallest size, which is 60 stitches. I wanted to have some really good, nice cling with it, so I think that's going to work out great. But because I did ribbing, I did have to make an adjustment when I started my heel increases, so I'm going to put that in my project page. It won't really make sense if you haven't done this heel or haven't done the vanilla is the new black pattern, but it should make sense if you have done it, at least helping you adjust. Essentially, I've just had to shift over, I think by 2 stitches where I start the increasing so that I don't get like, so that the rip continues and I don't get like 4 purls next to each other. And then I'll just shift my beginning of round. Like I'll just take 2 stitches and push them back over. So I think I'll write it up a little bit better when I put it in my project page, but that's essentially it. This yarn is really cool. It is free of synthetics. It is 75% BFL. I'm trying to get the tag out of here. 75% BFL and 25% mohair, which I have never used for socks. So I'm really curious about it. It's from Crafty Jack's Boutique. I got it at a yarn store in Squamish, and the colorway is Sea to Sky, which is the highway that we were on when we stopped at that yarn store. You might have seen it if you saw our British Columbia video or vlog that just came out this week. I showed that store. It's a really nice store. So it's a very cool yarn. I'm loving how it knits up, and I'm excited to see how it wears. I thought this would be a good week to bring back in a project that I haven't shown in a while, but that I've been slowly working on here and there, and that's my Cozy Comfort Throw. So it was a project that I was thinking, I don't really need to show this every week because it's not that exciting. Like, it is basically just garter stitch, and you don't really need to see me do 2 inches of garter stitch every single week on a rectangle because it's not that exciting. But I haven't shown it in a while, so I thought I don't have too much going on with my other 2 projects. It's a good time to bring this back in. So since the last time I showed it, which gosh, must have been well over a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I have made some pretty good progress. So I got going pretty good when I started, and then I think my Canada blanket really took things over, but I've doubled it. It's a little bit slow going. So this is a pattern by Homespun House. You hold together 2 strands of yarn. I think I'm using like a size 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle. You hold the yarn double, and I am using a neutral for one of my strands, and then I'm using an Advent from the Little Wolf Knits. I'm trying to think. This was Schitt's Creek Advent, maybe 2023, I think. So I spent a lot of time when I was at my friend Brianna's, and I wound these massive skeins. So I think this is either 2 or 3 100-gram skeins of my neutral. And then this is like 14 20-gram minis or something like that, all wound together in here. So holding those 2 together, this must be 3 skeins. Holding these all together has been really fun and really nice. And it's a really great project. I think I've done most of this in the movies. And we haven't been to the movies since we were in the States, I think, which was, yeah, well over a month ago. So it's a good project to bring to the movies because literally just garter stitch back and forth and back and forth. There will be an I-cord border, but that all comes at the end. So perfect TV watching and movie watching. So my Canada blanket that I have been showing every single week, I don't think I've done anything. I maybe finished one square, but I am close, like rapidly coming to the end of that project. And I have only one yarn left to add into it. So I think this blanket, the Cozy Comfort Throw, is going to start to get a little more work on it as we make our way out of Canada, ending our Canada trip. And then we have a little bit of adventures in the US before we head back home to Tennessee. So I'll probably work on that because I don't think, I'm looking at my Canada blanket, it's just sitting right here. All these squares are not going to get assembled while we're driving. I want to be able to be home in a space where I can spread everything out and look at it and get it all assembled that way. So I think it's a good idea to bring this blanket back out and show her to you. Maybe you'll see more of it very soon. Let's get into some questions. I have a couple from YouTube and I actually have a couple from Instagram because I asked on Instagram if anyone had any questions they wanted to add into the podcast. Okay, so first one is from Kenna. You were asking for interchangeable needle recommendations for a beginner. So I love that question. I feel like I might have answered this question before. I try to look back and try not to answer the same question too closely together. But if it's getting asked again, it's because it's a question that a lot of people have. So forgive me if I have answered this recently, but I'm going to answer it again. So whenever you're trying to figure out what needles or hooks or any type of tool that you like, I think it's a really good idea to try a lot of things before you invest in a large quantity of them. So most interchangeable needle brands will offer fixed needles as well. So you can try, say for your next project, you can order or buy at your local yarn store the needle size that you need and try that particular brand. So the main differences in different needles, of course, is going to be material. So do you like wood, plastic, metal? The actual shape of the needle can be different. The way that it tapers, is it pointier? Is it more blunt? This is a preference that you will kind of develop as you try different things. The length of the needle tip, standard is 5 inches, but 4 inches can be found as well. I'm sure there's other lengths too, especially when you get to a shorter circumference of circular needles. Those needle tips themselves get smaller, which is why a lot of people, me included, don't love working circular needle or 16-inch needles or the really tiny 9-inch ones because the needle tip is so small. What else can be different? The cords. I made an upgrade to my needles 3 years ago, I think, and it was mostly over the cords. So I'm going to recommend a couple of brands here, and these are just my things that I have tried that I like, but there's so many things out there. So I think Knit Picks is a really great intro level needle set. It is in the medium cost range, maybe on the lower end, which is really nice, and the quality is good. So I had a Knit Picks wooden needle, interchangeable needle set for about 10 to 12 years, and it was awesome. The only reason that I decided to upgrade was to get different cords because I just wasn't loving the way that the cords worked as compared to another needle brand that I got introduced to. So another needle that I really like is ChowGoo. ChowGoo, as far as price per individual needle, is also pretty average. The needle sets come in a lot of different configurations, so it can be really confusing, but if you like the metal ChowGoos, I think go for those. I think they have a wooden set. I didn't love the wooden set. It's a little too sticky for me. I like more of a laminated wood. So the last needle set I'm going to recommend is Lantern Moon. This one is on, I would say, a little bit of the higher end of the price points, but it combined two things that I really liked, which is wooden needles and a steel cord like the ChowGoo needles have. So I really, really like it. There are downsides to that needle set as well. I'm finding that they wear really fast. They're pretty easy to break. I've broken most of mine by putting my project bag on the floor in our van. I set it down on the floor next to me when we're riding in the car, and then I forget and I get up and I step on it, or Toaster steps on it. So that's a little frustrating. But also more of a consequence of having wooden needles. So every brand and needle type has its thing, but I think trying out different fixed needles to figure out what your preferences are, because there's no great needle, it's only the best needle for you. And then if you're thinking, I just want to get a set to start with, I would really recommend Knit Picks. I think they're really great. They have metal, they have wood, and I also think they have, isn't there something, I feel like it's called like Symphony or Harmony or something, where they do have that a little bit nicer cord that has the steel cord in it that's just so much better than the plasticky ones. I think I've seen that available. So there you go. And everyone is welcome to contribute how you figured out your needle type, your favorite needle type, what you would recommend. Please add into the comments. Okay, next question. If a pattern calls for DK weight yarn, but you sub in fingering held double, aren't you doubling the cost? Are there any benefits? So I wonder if this is a question a little bit about my blanket that I'm making, because I am making an entire blanket here. Let me get out my squares with fingering weight yarn held double. Now there's a specific reason I'm doing it for this blanket. Let me get back to that in just a second. But essentially, are you doubling the cost of something if you sub in fingering weight held double for DK? Pretty much, yes. Not entirely, because the yardage, oh, actually, wait a second. I was just thinking the yardage on fingering weight is more than the yardage on DK weight yarn. But when you double that, you're halving it, right? So you might even be more than doubling your cost, honestly. It is definitely more expensive. It's not something that I would say is a good idea for every pattern. Where it is a good idea is if you want to use up a lot of yarn. So let's say you have a ton of yarn in your stash and you have so much fingering weight yarn in a specific color or whatever, and you want to add it into a sweater that's DK weight, you can double it up and use it twice as fast. It's good to add in like for color work or different things that use a small amount of yarn, because a lot of times I think, I don't know, maybe not everyone is like me, but I stash fingering weight way more often than I stash any other weights. So I might buy a sweater's quantity of DK weight yarn, but I already have a whole range of options of colors to do for a color work yoke and fingering weight, so I could combine them. My DK weight, main color combined with a contrast color held double, because I don't need as much of it. It's already in my stash. Why I did it for this project in particular is because I did want to use up more yarn. So I knew I was going to be buying a skein of yarn, multiple skeins of yarn in every province, and I wanted to eat up the yarn fast. So holding it double means I get to use it up twice as fast. I get slightly bigger squares with it. But the other thing that I really do like about holding yarn double that I only discovered through doing these blankets is that it blends the colors really nicely. So this color was pretty subtle, so it already blended really nicely. But let's say like this one, for example, has a lot of different splotches going on, a lot of different color swatches, and holding it double just blends it really nicely. It just makes it work up a little bit different. So I really enjoy holding the yarn double. I wouldn't say I'm gonna do it for everything. It's not cost effective, like as you mentioned, but sometimes it works in a pinch, and it's great for when you're trying to use what you already have. Okay, what will you miss the most when your road trip is over? I am going to miss, I think, just being outside, hiking, being in campsites. Lately, we've had a lot of campfires. I've really enjoyed that. So just generally being outdoors. I don't think that's going to be the same no matter where we end up settling, because we'll have a comfy home to be in. And here it's like we have a decently comfy home, but the outdoors are a little more appealing a lot of the time. And we're going to all these really amazing national parks in different areas and getting to explore new things. So I'm gonna miss that definitely the most. You made me think of a lot of things that I'm not going to miss, but you didn't ask that question, so maybe I'll save that for another episode. Okay. Somebody asked, is Toaster a rescue? So Toaster is our dog. I'll try to remember to put a picture in here give Kent a picture to put in here. But yes, Toaster is a rescue. Kent rescued him actually before we were together from SPCA in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. He is 10 years old today, so it's his birthday. We're going to go get him a little treat later. And then another person asked, what kind of puppy are you considering for Toaster? Because we want to get Toaster a dog. I mean, we really want to get us a dog, but I think it will be really good for Toaster to have a companion, especially as he's getting a little bit older. He has loved staying with different sitters on Rover when we've traveled. So if we have like a really busy day or we know we're going to be out or it's really hot or something like that, we'll get him a sitter. And we always try to get him one where the owner has another dog so he can play, and he loves it so much. So we want to get him a dog. It might not be a puppy because we do want to rescue, but I don't know, it could be a puppy. I think definitely a younger dog to kind of, keep him young and everything. So I don't know what kind of dog. I would really like to get a poodle, but I don't think Kent does. Let's see if he can hear me. I don't think Kent wants to get a poodle. I would also like to get a dog a little bit smaller than Toaster. He's 45 or 40-ish pounds. And I would love to have one that's small enough that I can, take with me maybe on a plane, on a train. And that has to be pretty small to fit in a carrier. So none of that may happen. That's just all things that I think that I want. I think we're probably going to start looking once we get settled somewhere, and we'll just fall in love with the dog, and it will probably be none of those things. But as long as Toaster loves it and we love it, I think that will be perfect for him. Okay, I think one more question here. Oh, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong thing. Where did I see it? Hold on. Oh, yes. How has your knitting changed while being on the road? Routines, habits, projects, etc. So I guess the biggest change to my knitting and crochet is that I've been doing these really long-term blanket projects. This one that I'm doing for Canada is not so long because we've been here for 4 months. It'll probably take me another month to assemble it. So 5 months, not too bad for a blanket. But when we were in the States doing all 50 states, it took me 18 plus months to finish that blanket. And that was really long term because it also wasn't, I guess I did take a break from it for quite a while, but it was pretty much, I was adding stuff to it most weeks. So that definitely changed and kind of pushed aside some other larger projects that I probably would have been working on. I definitely thought I was going to have more knitting time on the road. In my head before we started traveling, I was thinking, well, I'm going to be the passenger. Kent drives all of pretty much 100% of the time. And so I'm the passenger. I'll be able to knit or crochet. And especially when we started out, that did not happen. Either I was needing to look something up or try to get a little work done on my phone or try to figure out how to make Toaster comfortable. That was a really big part of when we started our trip. Now I get a little more knitting done. I would say I still don't get as much knitting and crochet done as I do when I'm not traveling, just because our whole day is more full. Just the logistics of being in a van and moving to campsites and to rest areas and to different places, it just takes longer to do everything. So I don't really have that sit down at nighttime every single night like I do when I'm at home. So overall, just less time, I think, in general. But it's getting better a little bit, especially in Canada. It's been a little better. I figured out a good way to hold Toaster that doesn't restrict my arms, so I can still knit and he can still be comfortable in my lap up where the air conditioning is and he can see out the window. I think as far as what projects I'm making, it hasn't changed things all that much. I'm probably still making similar things, but I do have to be a little more planned ahead. I can't just on a whim start something different because the space, oh, you can't see, the space that I have to hold things is that cabinet right there. And granted, I do have some bags here on the floor and my project bags are out. And there's a tub that has some yarn in it. But I don't have the more options like I normally do with a stash. So I can't really pivot things. So I think it's helped me to stick to my projects a little bit better and maybe even finish things a little bit faster. Those are really fun questions. Thank you all for submitting those. If you do have any questions for me, knitting, crochet, travel, life related, just put them down in the comments below with the hashtag question in the front, and I'll do my best to answer them in next week's episode. As always, we've done a lot of stuff in the last week, so I'm just going to pick a few highlights to share. So we spent the entire week in Alberta. We started out in Edmonton, and I got to meet up with two people, Trisha and Jen, which was so much fun. We got to meet up at the Fiber Nook, which is in Edmonton, and it's a really nice yarn store. They have so much space. We got to sit. We actually went to lunch, and then we got to sit and hang out and knit for a little while. I have more footage that I'm going to share of the yarn store in our vlog, which will be coming out not next week, I think, but the following week. But I did get some yarn there. So at that point, I was not adding yarn to my blanket anymore. So I was like, okay, blanket is cut off, but I still want to buy and experience more Canadian yarn. So I found this self-striping yarn, and I'm going to put a picture in here of the swatch of it because I've already packaged it up in a Ziploc and put it way deep into the tub that we store things in, and it's a little hard to get out. So please see the picture for reference, but it is a really fun self-striping skein in some Christmassy colors that I think I will really enjoy making, whether it's later this year or another year. And it is from Comfy Cozy Knits. So that was a dyer that I hadn't seen before. We spent some time in Jasper National Park, which I really enjoyed. It was, I don't know, it was just a cool place. And I really liked our campground. I think that was it. I really liked the campground. I really liked the town. So we had a good time there, but we saw some wildlife. We hadn't seen any wildlife in a while, and we saw bighorn sheep, a bunch of bighorn sheep. And we saw a moose, and I have no idea, I'm not a moose expert, but to me this moose looked a little bit small. So I was wondering if maybe it was a moose that had been born earlier that year or was like maybe 2 years old. I don't really know how fast moose grow. There was no other moose with it, like no mom or anything. It wasn't that small, but it was just eating on the side of the road for a long time. So we just got to watch it for a while, which was really, really cool. And then lastly, we've made it over to Banff, and we spent a few days in the Lake Louise area. So we did hikes. Oh, was it? Not yesterday, 2 days ago, we did some hikes around Lake Louise, and we also went up and saw Moraine Lake, which was just gorgeous. The water is so blue. It's so cool. Like, I don't know, the camera honestly captures it pretty well. Like, that is pretty much how it looks in person, which is so, so cool. Okay, I think that's everything for this week. We are closing down on podcasts on the road. I should have one more coming this next week, and then we're going to be back in Tennessee at my parents' house figuring out what the heck we're doing next in our life, because we still don't know right now. So we're gonna soak in all of the last podcasts as possible. I'll do my best if I can get outdoors next week, but I don't really know. We'll see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.